if you want to ride waves, if you want to surf, if you want to go scuba diving one day, swim and snorkel around a reef, you need to start taking these baby steps. So I started surrounding myself. I was open with my fear with a friend and said, hey, man, I'm terrified of this. You're obviously not. What are the facts? And here's the thing. If you ask a surfer why they're surfing, they will tell you the facts. In fact, they're probably more qualified to tell you the facts of sharks than you are if you're afraid, because they're out there day in and day out. There's risks and everything. But if you want to live a life where you're snorkeling and, at least to experience it, some in your, at some point in your life, ask those people what they do, what their mindset is like, and be willing to take some steps with them, even if it's the smallest thing. But I do believe if you bring that up in prayer as well, like say, God, please help me. I want to have freedom. The goal is not to be fearless. The goal is to have freedom to do what you want to do and to know that that can help unlock other people from other things. Here's the thing. If you're afraid of sharks and your kid fell in the water, like you wouldn't even think twice about it. You would just go in there and grab them out because there's that love. It just conquers fear. I think perfect love casts out all fear, man. But when it's for yourself, when it's inside yourself, you start to second guess it. You're emotionally attached to limiting beliefs and all sorts of things. But I would just say, get outside yourself, start asking people who have a different mindset than you, and trust that what they're doing, as long as they're qualified to give you advice in that area, start listening to them and see what they have to say.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hey everyone, welcome to Flow Over Fear. I'm so glad and so pumped you're here today because we have an amazing guest. And when you think about rising above fear, nobody epitomizes that more than the guest I have today. Justin Maina is an America Ninja Warrior athlete who was on that series. He's a TV host, he's an actor, he's a fitness model, and a licensed massage therapist. And he's now on a mission to help people overcome their fears and not live a competent, not live a complacent life anymore. Easy for me to say. He does this through hosting his new show, The Fear Hunter Show, and through various community outreaches that remind people that they are loved and valued. I'm so stoked to have you here, dude. This is going to be a great conversation. Thanks for being here.
Oh, man. Well, hey, thank you for the intro. That's pretty darn accurate, man. I just want to be able to go through my life making people feel loved and valued. And at the end of the day, look, we should not be limited by the fears that we have in front of us. And if we need help with them, I mean, that's why we're both here. We've got that mission to help people conquer that fear, not be limited by it. And we really do believe that you're going to get some nuggets on this podcast that you can start applying today.
Definitely. Well, that's why I'm glad you're here, because when we connected, that's what we connected on, the fact that we have the same viewpoint, the same view on fear. And I know from your background, you faced your fears, not only faced them, but embraced them and started to live your best life. Eventually appearing on the American Ninja Warrior show, now becoming a public speaker and a host and all of this kind of stuff that scares people a lot. Can we kind of go backwards? I want to talk a little bit about your, how you came up when you were a kid. Like, how did fear show up in your life when you were a kid?
It showed up because it was everywhere. You grow up and you naturally compare yourself to other people that are doing great things. It's just when you start to travel more and you start to surround yourself with people who you've never seen before, you're kind of quiet. Like, who is this person? Are they safe? Are they not? I'll never forget meeting somebody when I was younger in my early teens, who just seemed to have no fear in life. Just going out there, just jumping in the water, swimming way out. They have no fear of sharks. They're talking to people. They've like never met a stranger. And I'm like, how do you live this bigger than life? And I just realized that this person just knew who they were, like in their core, their identity. And at the end of the day, you know, it's not that you should fear people pleasing, but don't be so affected by their opinions because it's gonna change all the time, and that's easier said than done. But I truly found that this person produced good fruit in an area that I wanted to be able to emulate, and I had to be willing to walk alongside this person and find out why are they doing things the way they're doing it, and how did they get to that point. So it was just being inspired by people that seem to live a fearless life. And at the end of the day, I realized it's not that they're fearless. They decide they're going to do it. Their risk is worth the reward at the end of it. They don't want to have regrets. And we have that choice to make. Nobody can make that choice for us, but success leaves clues. And people, if you're willing to be humble enough, I found out a lot of these people are more than happy to share this content. Look at you. Like, you're on this podcast, you're doing this, and you're giving out free content because you see the fruit behind overcoming fear. And that's that it can be fuel to propel you forward to doing like so many different things you never thought were possible.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, and I'm glad you're doing that same thing too, because so you talk about looking at other people, looking at models, looking at mentors, people who could help you get through that. Where were you finding that in your life at that time? Was that just something that came to you? Were you just attracted to it? What drew you to it?
Honestly, it kind of came to me when I was younger. I didn't see it fully modeled within my family because, hey, everyone's family is different. There may be good qualities, bad qualities, and I'm not knocking my family, but everyone has a certain calling in their life, and your family's calling may be different than your calling. So, like, my dad is not the guy who's going to be out in the water surfing. He knows, he grew up in the era of Jaws, and that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
But for me, I want to be out there and enjoying life, and I kind of grew up with that same covering of being afraid of these things. And but it took me seeing somebody outside of my family to see, wow, there's people who think nothing of jumping in the water and doing certain things. So it just kind of happened on its own. You can't, I knew that you can't stay in your shell. And, but once you're out and about, you end up meeting people that will inspire you. So it just kind of came up, honestly.
Yeah, well, that's great. Yeah. So, and I mean, there's accidents are, happy accidents are great, but just, you have to be available and open to see those things. So you're seeing those opportunities to meet the right people. And you mentioned a little bit, you had a sense of fear that was showing up in your life. How was that showing up in when you were younger that you had to get over?
Oh yeah. I had tons of fear. I would say growing up, the two fears that I had very commonly show up was the fear of, I would say I didn't feel like my voice mattered for a variety of reasons. Words that were spoken over me, friends even. I mean, your friends and family, those words resonate the most with you. And here's the thing, They loved me. They wanted the best for me, but yet sometimes there can be truths that are in jokes that they may not mean to come off the way they do. But for example, I know sometimes I just wanted attention, so I was talking a lot. And sometimes when you talk a lot, you may not say the best things at the right time. And some people can say, hey, what are you, stupid? Or hey, shut up, and it makes you feel like, all right, well, I never talk at the right time, or I'm kind of annoying. And why would you think that way? Why would you say that? I'm just like this energetic kid. Sometimes people would even say, hey, they would joke about my looks, and they would say, oh, it's a good thing he's good looking because he's not too bright. And it's a joke, but then you start thinking, wow, well, maybe that is true. People complimented me on my eye color, but then they would make jokes like that. And then also I would have a list. So people would ask me to say my name. So I would say Justin, and they'd laugh. And I'm like, you know what? Like, maybe I ought to not speak as much. And then it translated into the fear, because I feel like fear is a cancer. So if there's something wrong with me, then I internalized it into being the second fear, which was I was terrified to get too close to somebody. So I held my distance from people because I knew that eventually, once they got to know me, they'd realize how stupid I was, how how, some of my problems that would make them really second guess our friendship. And it was just
Mhm.
because I didn't realize, I just believed a lot of these things. And I didn't really know my value then. And but that was a legitimate fear growing up.
Wow. That's yeah, and that's always hard. I mean, especially when you have people that love you, people that, you love, and they don't mean that, and they don't have that ill intent, but we all have those kind of shadows of our past where we've been affected by things that people we love say to us. So, but then, and how did you, so what was the trigger point that helped you to kind of, or was there one trigger point? Was it gradual? How did you start to rise above it and come into this person that you are now?
Yeah. So the thing that resonates for me, one of my core values, very similar to yours, flow over fear. It's faith over fear. And for me, I know that people are going to make mistakes. People will always
Mhm.
inevitably let you down. But it started through mentorship and seeing that there were people that can get put in my life, whether by me seeking it or it just happens. That was the first time I had that thing happen where it's just somebody saw potential in me, started speaking words of life and encouragement into me, asking me, questioning me, what do you want to do in life? Where do you want to go? What's holding you back? And I'm like, wow, I never even thought of these things. So it was cool to be poured into. But then I got to see growth through mentorship. But during that time, I started my own walk with God and my faith journey, and then realized as that was growing, I realized that people in my life around me that care about me, they can fail, they can mess up, they can get things wrong. So I even was in a situation where the person who was pouring into me, my mentor, it eventually became like dysfunctional, and there was like some guilt, manipulation, and I was just at a point where I'm like, you know what, this is not good. Does that mean it's all bad? No, but I do need to know
Mhm.
that, hey, they're in life. I need to have boundaries. I need to know my own values, and then eventually realize that people will always let you down, but my faith in God and his love for me will never fail. And that's a true representation of unconditional love that I try to emulate around the people around me. So like I give and do everything as if I'm doing it to God and knowing he's going to take care of things. He's going to take care of vengeance. He's going to take care of allowing me to have peace to move on. He's going to take care of when I mess up. He's going to make it right because he knows that, hey, I'm made perfectly imperfect and that's okay with him, but not have that same standard with other people. So it was getting away from the mentorship and realizing that God's my ultimate authority, but also to use people around me, gain their wisdom, but not make that my main source of mentorship.
Right, right. So you found faith, and that faith really turned into this action of how you live with people around you. Am I understanding, or how you internalize and see the world? How is that showing up in your life today?
Well, man, I'll tell you, it definitely showed up when I overcame one of my greatest fears, which was the fear of sharks. So, growing
I
up,
got to hear this
what's
story.
that?
I got to hear this
Okay,
story.
so yeah, so I mean, everyone grows up with the fear of the unknown, and especially
Yeah.
Jaws. But I'll preface the story. Well, I'll get into it, but I'll say this: there will be a time in your life that you get approached with overcoming something in your life, and all the self help books in the world aren't going to really help you. You have to walk through
Mhm.
it. You may not have your mentor, your hype man next to you. Your faith is going to be testing that fear. What do you believe in? Whatever you believe more in is gonna win. So for me, I'm like, all right, I have this fear of sharks. And I also believe that God has not given me a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind. How do both exist? One has to win here. What am I going to do? And as I was navigating through that, I would get little baby steps toward getting in the water, maybe swimming out 5 feet, or if a fish jumps on me, it hits my leg, I don't have to freak out. It's not a shark. So I was going through that process, baby steps over 10 years. And then finally one day, this was about 9 years ago, I I I had it, and I had this little. Every time I jump in the water, I would do something. Maybe it's skiing or wakeboarding, and I would still hear the music, Jaws, and I was like, you know what, forget this. Like I want to overcome this once and for all, and I just had such a peace in my heart, man, in my soul, that God was going to help me through that. But I had to be willing to face the thing I was most afraid of. And here's how it turned out. I immediately knew if I was going to overcome something, I needed to face it. And the worst thing I could think of, and this is something I just want to just preface, it's not something I'm saying is going to be your door to unlocking your fear. But for me, it involved jumping off my dock at midnight. I was living on the water in Boca Ciega Bay in Tampa Bay, Florida. And the worst thing I could think of was to jump off my dock at midnight, swim across the canal and swim back and do it by myself. And that to me was like a death sentence. I've been boating in that water. Everyone knows that there are sharks there. In fact, 10 years prior to this, there was a man who jumped off his dock in the daytime and he jumped on a bull shark and died. In Tampa Bay, people know that story. But then again, these are rare occurrences. Mine's probably going to be more favorable to die because I'm jumping at midnight and doing it by myself. But I knew for a fact, if I were to survive doing that, I would have trusted God with the most sacred part of my life, And I just had a peace that if I did that and put that to the test, if I survived, I would have conquered it. So I jumped up, long story short, jumped off my dock, swam to the other side. On the other side, as I was gaining enough courage to swim back, which was terrifying because I knew because I swam there, every shark in the world heard that splash and they're probably investigating. As I was building up enough courage to swim back, I stepped on some, sea oyster, like barnacles, and I cut my foot. And I know that, hey, blood in the water is not going to help anything. I was very tempted to get out of the water and walk back to my house, but I knew that was my destination. So as I was swimming back, it was the most terrifying thing in the world because I've never been in a situation that I put my life on the line where there was no way to get out of that situation. I was at the halfway point, so physically, emotionally exhausted. I can't just say, okay, I quit, I'm done. I just had to persist. And I was praying under my breath and saying, God, please help me because if a shark hits me, I don't have enough strength to defend myself. Got to the other side. God blessed me with bioluminescence all around me. Can't make that stuff up. It was glowing, got out of the water. And the two lessons I learned was this. First of all, after I accomplished this fear, my greatest fear, I started asking myself, man, what does it look like to live a fearless life? This is amazing. And here's the thing, when you conquer something, I do believe that there's good and evil in the world, and evil will always try to fight you. Even if you've conquered something, it'll try to remind you of something from the past. So I was reminded by this evil through a thought. In my mind, my thought was, oh my gosh, if I were to do that again, I could be totally honest with myself. It would be just as freaky, if not freakier. Then something inside me, and I believe that's the Holy Spirit, man, spoke up inside me. And I didn't even it happened. God was confirming that it meant more to do something afraid, but be willing to do it than to do it totally fearless. So it took more boldness to trust God in that situation. And I truly got to experience what it's like for God to be strong in my weakness. And I've never experienced that before because I felt like I had to have it together. I had to do it on my own. But I know for a fact it was a point in my life where I gave it up to God and I said, God, you take the reins. It's in your hands. I don't know if I have enough strength, but it's between you, me, and the elements. I'm trusting you. And I fully trusted my life on the line. And I got to see that I survived and I did it. And the thing I learned is I'm going to parallel that principle to anything I do in life. So what I take from that, what I would encourage people with in that story, it's not that you have to overcome sharks, but if there's something that terrifies you and you have a relationship with God or a conviction to do something, for me, it's my faith in God that was solid. But I knew that if there's a conviction in my heart for him to tell me to do something, I want to know that I'm willing to do it, even in the midst of fear. And that was my commitment from that day forward, that I was willing to do it.
Wow, that's an incredible story because it sounds like the way that you looked at what you said was your worst fear. That was your biggest fear, big one, right? Yeah. So you took that and you basically just did. I mean, you did a literal swan dive over that fear and just went after it like in one foul swoop. And not only that, you went across the lake or the canal, and you came back. It reminds me of that story from. It reminds me of Dances with Wolves. I remember Kevin Costner's character at the beginning of the movie, like he rides his horse across the battlefield with everybody on the enemy side shooting at him. And, he gets to the other side. And I don't remember the context of this, but I remember that the enemy was like, no, come back, come back. So he actually goes back again and like braves the bullets firing and all that stuff, makes it to the other side. And anyway, it was an interesting thing. But that kind of approach to overcoming fear, where you're just going to go after the biggest fear, that could be off-putting to some people. Do you recommend that approach to look at to how people look at fear, or is there a happy medium? How do we look at fear? If we're battling our worst fear.
Yeah, I would say that took me about 10 years to get to that point, because prior to that, I was challenged to overcome that fear, just to enjoy life more. Like, hey, if you want to ride waves, if you want to surf, if you want to go scuba diving one day, swim and snorkel around a reef, you need to start taking these baby steps. So I started surrounding myself. I was open with my fear with a friend and said, hey, man, I'm terrified of this. You're obviously not. What are the facts? And here's the thing. If you ask a surfer why they're surfing, they will tell you the facts. In fact, they're probably more qualified to tell you the facts of sharks than you are if you're afraid, because they're out there day in and day out. There's risks and everything. But if you want to live a life where you're snorkeling and, at least to experience it, some in your, at some point in your life, ask those people what they do, what their mindset is like, and be willing to take some steps with them, even if it's the smallest thing. But I do believe if you bring that up in prayer as well, like say, God, please help me. I want to have freedom. The goal is not to be fearless. The goal is to have freedom to do what you want to do, and to know that can help unlock other people from other things. Here's the thing. If you're afraid of sharks and your kid fell in the water, like you wouldn't even think twice about it. You would just go in there and grab them out, because there's that love. It just conquers fear. I think perfect love casts out all fear, man. But when it's for yourself, when it's inside yourself, you start to second guess it. You're emotionally attached to limiting beliefs and all sorts of things. But I would just say, get outside yourself, start asking people who have a different mindset than you, and trust that what they're doing, as long as they're qualified to give you advice in that area, start listening to them and see what they have to say. Be open to it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Perfect love casts out all fear. That experience is really helpful, because, I remember first, kind of starting my swim journey in triathlon, and I was afraid the same thing. I was swimming in the shark-infested waters of Corona del Mar in California, dressing up like a sea lion, in my wetsuit and all this, and I'm like, yeah, this is frightening, but at some point, especially with that kind of fear, you have to just do it. You have to get in with the fear and do it. And, eventually it's just, and then you come out and you have that epiphany moment. And I love your epiphany, that your epiphany with fear happened at that, as you got out of the water and saw the bioluminescence around you. Now, did that kind of start your journey of chasing fear, of looking for opportunities to embrace it?
I think it started just before that. I would say several years before that, when I started, when I had the desire to do a backflip. I saw one kid in 7th grade do a backflip off a tree, and I thought, man, wouldn't it be amazing to do that one day? But too bad that's not going to be me. Maybe one day in heaven, or I don't know, maybe in an apparatus where I can do a flip. But that's just not me. And then one day somebody saw potential in me, nothing that I saw in myself, but I just had that desire. And I think a lot of us have dreams and desires that we let die, but somebody can spark them up again. So it was sparked up again, and somebody asked me about something. I said, man, I'd love to do a backflip. Well, let me spot you. I'm like, how does that work? And I'm like, well, you can't do it. But he had the faith that I could do it. It took me 2 years. It took me so long, longer than most people can learn how to do something like this. I was afraid of falling on my head, but I'm telling you, that was the catalyst. Once I was able to fully learn how to do a backflip, to this day, people know me as the backflip and handstand guy. I just backflip whenever I want, because it's just a representation of how I've overcome that fear and it flipped the script on something I thought I could never do. And it's such a joy to be able to know I can do that. So it's fear can be a cancer, or it can be a catalyst to fueling other things. So I would say from that, I was like, all right, well, I'm eventually going to overcome my fear of sharks. eventually I'm going to be confident and asking a woman out on a date, not fear the rejection. I'm going to eventually just realize that the sky's the limit. I can do anything. Maybe I could be the man that sets the standard for my future children. I don't know, but I know I never want to be limited by living a complacent life or just a very comfortable life.
Yeah, I'm with you. And so it took you 2 years to learn the
Yeah.
backflip. Was most of that 2 years just kind of overcoming the fear of landing on your head, or was it the physiology of it?
I'll tell you this. It was the person who would spot me. They didn't live in town. So every time they'd be in town, it would take me a long time. I would need their hand there, and I would overthink so much. I would think that I'd fall on my head. I just had this root of fear that, knowing what I know now, I could get into that first because I had the physical potential to do it, but I was so in my head and thinking of a million things. But with the coach, I stopped getting in my head and I just listened. All right, do that. Okay, I'll do whatever you say. And then when they left, I would eventually get out, get in my head, and then practice for literally outside for an hour, trying to see if I can do it, and then eventually half do it, not fully commit. I learned that I wasn't fully committing. I was allowing fear to creep in instead of acting on it right away. One of my favorite books, I mean, there's tons, but like The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy, the little things you do consistently. And I didn't have that consistent at that time. You'd come in town, learn a little bit, and then it'd go away. And then I'd feel defeated, like, oh man. So if I just stayed committed to doing that every single day until it became a second habit, or just find somebody else who can transition into being my spotter. I was just too complacent, too comfortable with things, man. It's so.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen videos of you just doing this backflip like it's second nature, and you're catching so much air, and it's so amazing. It's clearly becoming natural to you. Now, my question is can a 43-year-old with, decent health and fitness learn to do a backflip? Asking for a friend.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Tell your friend that it is 100% possible. And, I've actually had this request a million times from a friend, friend of a friend, but that I should teach a course on helping people how to do that, because people would love to do that. And there's something priceless about being able to do that. I personally learned on the beach on a decline. You would have to jump so little off the ground to actually fall on your head. So with that being said, as long as you have good explosive energy and you could jump high, you should be able to do a backflip. As long as you're able to run well, you can sprint good, you've got explosive energy, you should be able to do it. The first thing I would do is walk you through just your head knowledge. Like, hey, can you do this? What's your biggest fear? Be honest with me. And then walk through, the fundamentals of what you need to do. And then just practicing it, knowing when you have a coach, the worst thing that can happen is you jump up and just go limp and go blank, which happens every now and then. But when that happens and you're up in the air, it's very easy for the spotter to just lift your legs over. But here's the thing. You have to trust your life in somebody else's hands. But if you're a control freak, it's going to be harder for you to let go of that. Whereas I just got back from ice climbing in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. I'm literally walking back just on a line that somebody can just let go and I'm done. But I trusted him in my hands, my life in his hands, and I was able to walk confidently back and fully enjoy one of the most beautiful things ever, walking down a frozen waterfall with seeing water at some points just flowing through this frozen thing, looking back, looking at Lake Superior, chunks of ice. I've got my ice axes and I'm like, wow, God, this is like what life is about, and got to climb myself out of there.
That's incredible. Yeah, and I love that attitude and the thanking of God when you're in those moments of like, I've done this, I've embraced fear, and it feels like it's certainly bigger than me. This is a God thing, and being able to climb down a frozen waterfall. I believe that adventure is the antidote to fear.
Oh yeah.
Does that kind of resonate with you?
Dude, it's one of my core values. Like I truly believe that extreme adventures that challenge me mentally, physically, and spiritually help me become a better man. They just do. There's something inside of me that helps me. It helps combat the limiting beliefs, the core limiting beliefs of like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I'm not valued, I'm not loved. And when I do these hard things, when I go through a cold plunge, when I do the thing that, I just am too tired to do, or I'm not brave enough to do that, I can't approach this person. Who am I to speak on this podcast? Or why am I this person of authority to speak on this issue? When you do those things, you remind yourself, hey, you have what it takes. And you know what? The cool thing is, I know God's with me, man. And one of my things I do in the morning, almost every morning, is go through my core values. They're like a constellation in life. Helps keep me set on a path. I also go through what my mission is, what my purpose is. And then I go through all my empowering beliefs. I have that as far as as my morning routine, because when I do that, I'm already starting out of the gate speaking words of life into my situation, rather than all the negative things that inevitably get compounded throughout the day. I want to start tipping that scale from all these lies that stack up in my mind and start speaking these things that have more power. If the power of the tongue has life or death, I want to start exercising that. I want to start saying, hey man, I don't remember your name right now, but I'm going to say it 3 times now that I've met you. So Adam, okay, that's your name, Adam? Okay, perfect. I used to be bad at names, but now I'm better at it because I'm working at it. Because if I say your name 3 times, I'm going to eventually conquer this thing, instead of, I suck at names. It's like, there's no hope.
Yeah. Right. You're reinforcing it.
Yes.
You're reinforcing it. So I'm so glad you went in that area of what your routines are. And so you talk about kind of reinforcing your core values, reinforcing your beliefs. How did you come to your core values? How can people find that? How would you recommend they do that?
So it's tough. Honestly, there's a price to everything. Yeah. And I didn't just come up with this stuff on my own. I didn't always have this routine. There are people that are going to come in your life for a specific season, and you're going to feel a tug on your heart, in your gut, that's going to tell you, I need to learn from this person. I need to grow in this area. I better listen up. I better invest in this. I would encourage you to listen to that. There are certain times in life that you need to act on things, and you can say, I don't have the money. Sometimes you have to pay the price. Sometimes it can be as cheap as paying the price for somebody's book to be around that person that you'd like to be mentored by. Sometimes it's a program. I actually invested in a program recently that literally went through all of the core values, beliefs, big main goals, reverse engineering. What are the things you can control in your environment, the people you're around, rewards, consequences, things that I thought we all knew, but I never really dug into it and set up an accountability system that literally would force me each week to look at this stuff that I thought, man, I don't have time to do this. Well, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So I knew that I was failing in so many areas of my life. And I was like, wait a minute, this is coming from somebody who I've looked up to. They've got strength, they've got integrity, they've got discipline, and they're obedient. And literally I had an opportunity, and I thought, you know what, I have to invest in this program. And I just learned ways to find out my core values. And core values are things that, and beliefs are things that you find to be true no matter what. Like, it's just in your core, they will never change. It's not now, if it's something that you believe now and it'll change after you get married, that's not a core value. But I even have a few here, like freedom over fear. That's a core value. Also, like influencing God's kingdom. I know that I can have an influence for God's kingdom. That's important to me. Another thing is feeling love every day. There's not a day, I don't care how bad of a day I have. It doesn't mean that I'm not deserving of love, whether it's from my peers or from God. Another thing is I believe that there's power in the team over self. I function better with a team than I do by myself. It's just, I know it. Not to mean that I can't do things by myself, but I've learned that there's something to it. I'm meant to work with a team. The last thing I have here is consistent growth. If I have consistent growth in my life, things will change. I will grow. I will become a better person. And those are just some of my core values that I just have. And I can write them down to elaborate on them more. But those are just the words I speak over myself, and I'll put the pieces together.
I love that. That's such and I share a lot of the values that you have there. It's so important to articulate and know what your core values, and your definition is great. Just find the things that you find to be true, no matter what, they can't be shaken. Yep. So good. And so I want to kind of switch gears into how you got into the American Ninja Warrior thing. So you learned to do a backflip, and you decided, hey, I'm going to sign up for American Ninja Warrior. Is that how it went, or no? How did you get there?
Oh, yeah, great question. So I learned how to do backflips in my mid to late teens.
Yeah.
And that I just became this like junkie when it came to doing things outside the box, thinking creatively when it came to workouts and climbing things. As I started overcoming my fears, building more confidence, it just became a thing that was natural to me in my late teens to early 20s. And then it was late in my career. I was 30 years old when actually throughout my mid 20s, people are like, man, you should audition for Ninja Warrior. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. I don't have time for that. It was not even an important thing to me, but I naturally did things that were just outside the norm. And also I was a licensed massage therapist, and I have been for nearly 20 years. So behind the scenes, I didn't know it, but I was cultivating a gift with developing a strong grip. So I was just I was just in my zone of doing those things. And then one day somebody's like, hey, auditions are ending in 2 weeks. Why don't you submit? And I'm like, all right, fine, I'll audition. Finally I'll audition. And they have over 100,000. This was several years ago, over 100,000 people competing to be on this show. And then I was one of the people that was selected my first time. That ends up being less than a half percentage of people that they select to be on the show. And then even far less percentage of people that actually get aired. And it is just a whole thing. And I was just honored to have that opportunity to be on the show, compete for a couple seasons, meet some friends that I'm still friends with today. And even though I'm not competing currently right now, because I feel like I'm in a season of really just pouring into, kind of like yourself, I want to share from stages, speak more, develop a course on helping people overcome fear, and doing the Fear Hunter show and breaking the chains of rejection and fear and self-sabotage. It's still a part of who I am, but it's not my identity. But it's still just a great platform that just kind of honestly came out of nowhere.
Yeah, it's a piece of the whole, but it's an exciting piece, and I love the little I love the little elements that you find out about that you would have never thought about. Like, I'm a massage therapist, so my grip is really strong, so that actually helped you. That's an incredible, like, I'm just, you never think about that.
That wasn't my goal for being on Ninja Warrior, but literally, I could recruit probably some amazing Ninja Warriors if I went not only the rock climbing gym, but especially massage therapists. I was at that time, I was doing 20, 25 clients a week. I was a deep tissue specialist. I started my own business at 18, but like, oh my goodness, imagine, and most of my clients were hour and a half sessions. Imagine every week getting at least 30 hours of training. 30 hours of training with my grip strength every week, in addition to working out. That makes up for exceptional grip strength.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. For sure. And by the way, I have to share this too. Your the name of your massage therapy company, because I love it. I'm a big fan of puns. It's Just Incredible.
Just Incredible Massage. Right? Yes.
So always support your pun-based businesses, everybody. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
So that's great. Yeah. Are you still operating as a massage therapist today?
I actually am. I still keep that license active. I work on a lot of celebrities, VIP clients, athletes, high-end executives. So I only have about time once a week to work on these clients. But yeah, so I still have that as a title.
That's awesome. Awesome. And yeah, I've heard, I've read up on that, and you have a very highly reputable business there. It's incredible.
Thank you.
So check it out if you can. So kind of getting into what's next for you, what you're working on now. You're working on this Fear Hunter show, and this is exciting because, I mean, you're working down a path of helping people through your own experience. And through your own experiences and knowledge and expertise of bringing your talents to the world stage, helping people to rise above fear. And this is an incredible story because it's coming full circle. You mentioned, you had a speech impediment, you had these fears. Now you're doing something. I mean, you've been doing something that people fear a lot of, which is speaking on stage, talking, and turning that into a career. That's incredible. So I just wanted to give you a shout out for that. But can you tell us about the Fear Hunter show and kind of where you're going with that?
Well, man, there are a couple of things just got highlighted that I'll just mention briefly before getting in that. Man, God's got a plan for you that supersedes like all of the things that you can think of on your own, man. And like, here's the thing. I was one of those rare ninja warriors who made it to city finals, and I was my run was never aired, and I thought, oh, that sucks, But I didn't know that that would be an even more inspiring story to other people. Say, hey, my run was never aired. I was in the top 10. I mean, I competed nationally, and it's like, but yet it wasn't aired. Does that discredit what I achieved and what I went through? No. But here's the other thing. I also had one of my greatest stages from just being myself. I went to Haiti. I got called to do a Ninja Warrior training camp in Port-au-Prince, Haiti, with a few other Ninja Warriors, demonstrating God's love through athletics. Did it.
Mhm.
And these were like some amazing Ninja Warriors, some of the top Ninja Warriors. And then there's like me. I'm just there. And, I was good, but not like them. I was just there with them. And here's the thing. Out of all the Ninja Warriors that they had access to, they asked me. They asked me to go on stage at a big festival in Michigan and share my experience. This stage was of 20,000 people, largest stage I've ever spoken at.
Wow.
And there were so many things that, like, if I want to get into speaking, people dream of being able to speak on stages like that. And it was just handed my way. So I'm just saying, if you just stay in your lane, stay true to your convictions, things will just work out. I guarantee you. And I was actually, and here's the thing, God will work all things together for good for those who love him and who are called according to his purpose. So if you align yourself up with God and know that his love is for you and you love him, you're going to start following that flow. And for me, it's been very important. Like, I've made a mistake. Several months ago, I wanted to pursue this credible massage coaching business, helping therapists be able to do as well as I have. Then all of a sudden, something, just right when I was about to launch it, something got pulled out from underneath me, got totally stripped. And I had a conversation with God, and God was like, it was in my heart. It wasn't like I heard his voice, but it was like, I know you settled for that number two thing, to focus on just the money aspect. But if you were truly honest with yourself, that list of 10 things you wanted to do, the fear hunter was that number one. And I said, all right, God, I don't have everything all figured out. I don't have the unlimited budget. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I am going to trust you. And I've seen God move in some incredible ways. But like, I've shot 2 episodes so far, still working out all the editing, getting the right team involved, marketing. I don't have it all together. I wish I could say I did, but I believe God's testing me with my stewardship of what I do have and my commitment to be able to push forward so that I can one day be a man of authority and influence to say, hey, I know what it's like. We're going to pivot through this. But just to give you a little highlight of my last episode and how this is my element, I didn't know what I was going to do it on, but I knew it would unravel. I started interviewing people in the mall. What do you think of fear? Do you have a greatest fear? Talking to fathers and sons and mannequins and dogs and just making it fun. And then eventually found this man who said, I don't really fear anything. And, what about girls? And he's like, no, man. And, like, what about getting girls' numbers? No, man, they got to give me their number. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. And then this woman, I said, do you agree with that? She goes, no way. I said, here's the challenge. I'm on a mission to help people overcome fear, especially this fear of rejection. And I've got a challenge for you. This is the Fear Hunter Show. There's a cash prize to this, but your challenge is to get rejected by asking women for their phone numbers. If you can get rejected 10 times, you win the challenge. And I, just as a way of saying, I care about you, I love you, and I can empathize with you, I'm going to go through the exact same thing and get rejected 10 times because nobody likes that. The transformation from this guy saying, no way, to like, wow, he started encouraging other people to say, this was tough, but what I learned was more valuable than the cash prize. He encouraged other people to say, just get over it. You got to do this. Rejection is part of life. And to go and celebrate the journey of failures, to go for the no was like amazing. So I want to have different themes. And that's what I'm doing. I don't have, like I said, it's not all figured out, but I'm just showing up and doing it and doing my best. And I'm having a blast and I'm seeing people's lives transformed.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So where can people watch Fear Hunter when it comes out? When does it come out? Where can they find it?
I'm going to be releasing that on YouTube. I'm probably going to have that attached to my personal channel. But if you want to find out about it, I would say right now, just stay tuned on my personal Instagram account, Justin Maina Official. That's where I'll release that. But I'm just working on that process right now. I wish I could say, hey, here's the QR code, here's the YouTube channel, but it's not there yet. But hey, let's just enjoy the journey. I just had somebody that I interviewed a couple days ago. His dad and his uncle died at the same age I'm at right now. and another
Wow.
uncle passed away when he was right at retirement age. So we are both determined to enjoy the journey and know that, hey, why don't we celebrate the failures? Because Winston Churchill said success, if you truly want to go after success, it's stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. So I may not
Yeah.
feel it, but I'm going to say, God, I know this is going to be a story for somebody one day. Because if your story sucks right now, just know it's not done. It's at the most exciting point for somebody reading in from the future. They're at that point. You guys are at that point. Just persevere.
That's awesome. That's great, great advice. I love that. And I know that, this audience is going to want to keep up and find out about that show because it sounds incredible. And I can't wait to watch it when it comes out. And what, as far as, fear is concerned, more of the, more of an open-ended question is fear, should we strive to be fearless?
So, I, here was my motto that got me on Ninja Warrior. Like they asked me for my ninja name and I just had this motto: love God, live
Yeah.
fearless. My love for God has allowed me to live a fearless life. It doesn't mean that I'm without fear. I'm not fearless. I'm in the midst of fear. I'm like fear with. I'm with that fear, and I just have the courage and conviction to say I'm just going to show up. As long as I'm committed to showing up, or at least make a baby step toward that, I am living a fearless life in that moment, and that's the definition of being fearless: being able to show up in the midst of that fear, but not as a pride thing, but saying, God, I just want to be able to say yes to freedom, say yes to saying I'm loved, I'm valued, I am enough, and that's my heart behind being fearless, to not be held back from really your full potential.
Yeah. So I heard that freedom is one of your core
Oh yeah,
values, obviously. So do you feel that that's the result of being able to embrace or rise above your fears?
yeah, that's my goal because
Yeah.
think about it. If you think of so many other things in life, what, like, ask yourself, what do you want to do in the world? What do you want to do in life? I want to be an actor. I want to do this. I want to do that. Well, what if you get to that? What are you going to do next? What are you going to do next? Well, I'll do this and I'll inspire the world. And what if you have all the money in the world? What are you going to do next? Well, maybe I'll start a charity. Well, it could be anything. I'm like, well, what? Really, at the end of the day, we're meant to live life to be free, to enjoy it, share it with other people, enhance their life, and I want to experience that to the fullest. And in fact, one of the things that I love doing, like on a day off, like my happy place, place that I love to go is I love to just get lost, go to a place I've never been to before, and just start walking, go for a hike. One place I love going to is like Laguna Beach, and just exploring the beaches there. I ended up finding a cave near the little castle areas like Victoria Beach. I started heading north, and around this rock, I found this cave that went deep inside, and I don't know. And then later on, I just treated myself to staying at the Montage and just having dinner there. And I'm sharing all that because, like, a lot of times the best moments for me are when I go someplace I've never been to before. And I'm like asking myself, where do you want to go next? Where do you want to go? What do you want to treat yourself to? And not have to report back to anybody. It's okay. And I feel like every time I maybe ask God, hey, God, where do you want me to go? He won't say anything. He's just like, you choose, you pick one. I gave you a choice. Don't ask me. Like, I want you to enjoy life. So I think my happy place will be just freedom, exploring. But I will say one place to describe a happy place that I really want to go to this year, God willing. I would love to go to Norway, like one of those places where you see fjords. I don't have it all figured out, but I would love to go there, man.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's on my bucket list too. It seems like such a beautiful country. So cold, so much cold immersion that you could do there.
Yes.
So amazing, so amazing. Well, yeah. How about and so you touched on your happy place. I love that it's just being able to be freedom and to go and not really know what's next. And so if you were to go back and tell that, tell younger you who was experiencing that fear, if you could tell him one thing, what would that be?
I would say I would ask him, what do you really want to do in life? Like, what's your purpose? Until I can walk him through something that sounds solid. So
Yeah.
I'd encourage him to surround himself with people he looks up to, and have them question what he really wants to do, and to surround himself with people who are doing that, and to be in an environment where he's consistently encouraged to grow and to get rejected. That for me would be the best thing. If you can be encouraged to get rejected, man, I'd be a different man today. I'd be so
Yeah.
different, because what I realized, and I'll share this, one thing that I realized with dating was I used to think I had a fear of hurting somebody. I used to fear, oh, well, if I don't like her, I'm going to have to hurt her feelings and let her know it's not meant to be. And I don't like rejection. So I don't want to reject her. And then I realized it was all wrong. That was just a facade. The deeper thing behind that is I had a fear of valuing myself enough to be able to say, hey, you are enough. You deserve to have intimacy. You're meant for a relationship. You need to go out there and know your value, to know you can explore, you can honor that person, and know that if it doesn't work out, what if you guys are just meant to be in each other's lives to sharpen each other, treat each other with respect, have certain boundaries, so that if it doesn't work out, you're still honoring each other and honoring each other's future spouse. So I take that into consideration ahead of time and let them know, just the way that God loves both of us, I want to be able to honor both of us in that way. And if it is a no, hey, I know that they deserve somebody who wants to pursue them and love them more than what I can do. And they deserve that. So and you have to be willing to get rejected. So I wish I would have known that earlier and have been encouraged to defend myself, and also be able to speak up for myself and know that rejection is part of life and it has nothing to do with your character or your identity.
Yeah, that's huge. That's powerful advice. And I know that a lot of people well into adulthood, including myself, struggle with the rejection. It's hard to get rejected. And even now, that gives me the heebie-jeebies about going and getting, purposefully going out and getting rejected. How in the moment, is there any advice you have for dealing with rejection? Like how we can better deal with it and not internalize it so powerfully?
Oh man. One thing, when I was having to ask 10 women for their phone numbers, which was awful. It was awful. I'll share this with you because it's probably not going to make the episode, but I'll just say this. In a mall, you're going to have people who are like 17, 20 years old, older, all around. I'm not there to ask for people's numbers. I just had to get the number out. I needed to get rejected 10 times. I remember asking the first couple of girls that came up, just like, whatever, they're like little young girls. And I was like, hey, hey, would you be opposed to me getting your number, just to get a no? Man, they're like, well, how old are you? And they're like, oh my gosh. And they were just so young. They were under 18. And I'm like, what? And people were under 18 look like they're older. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, it made me feel like I'm a weirdo. But it was like out of context. So I'm just sharing that with you, because that made me get in my head thinking, oh my goodness, I don't want to ask anybody who looks under 30 now. Like, it was tough. And then, but still I had to go out there. What I did for myself was, because I had to hit that number out of love for somebody else. I realized it was a greater reason for it. So I had to remind myself, I'm doing this to honor somebody else and to stick to a commitment. And what I did was I just had a smile on my face and I wanted to honor them. Hey, how you doing? Hey, look, I know, state the obvious. Look, hey, I know this is out of the blue, but I just want to let you know, these are my feelings. Well, I didn't say that with them. I'm just like, hey, which I was just nice about it. So if you're afraid of rejection, I would just say, hey, you would regret not doing it. So might as well get used to getting those no's. Honestly, I would just say, take that challenge. I need to have a list of challenges. I think I need to have a worksheet that will challenge people, including maybe ask, if you're single, not if you're married, but if you're single, I think you should ask the opposite sex for their numbers, and ask people that you're not even interested in. And you'll find that, wow, I'm actually grateful to ask somebody that's my same age that I'm attracted to for their number, rather than the complete opposite. So I don't know if that answers your question, but just do it afraid, be respectful, know that you're there for a mission. There's a reason for it. You want to be a man or a woman of integrity, stick to that commitment, and then you'll actually find that it has less of a hold on you. That's why I did it. And actually, I can guarantee you, like, I wouldn't normally just ask a woman out, ask for her number, but I can tell you, I'd be way more confident now because I know that they're going to be around my age, like, so,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah, well, I think that it does answer my question, because in there, you're basically, I think what you're saying, if I'm interpreting it correctly, is just, acknowledge it's going to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It's just going to be uncomfortable. And that's part of it is fear is going to be uncomfortable, but we should desire and embrace the discomfort and then just do it anyway. I love that. I mean, just be afraid, do it anyway. And you'll do it.
It could be dangerous if we actually hung out sometime. And hey, what if we do this? Well, what if we did this too?
I will not be asking people for their phone number, though.
No, don't do that. That would not be good.
No, that's awesome. Well, Justin, thank you so much for joining today. I know that you have a YouTube channel, and people can find you on Instagram at Justin Maina Official. And where else can people find you? Where do you want people to go to get in touch with you?
Well, I would just say if you want to follow the journey, Instagram is the best method for that. And honestly, I would challenge you, if you're bold enough to have a problem right now that you don't know the solution to, I would encourage you to reach out to Adam or myself and just mention it. You don't know what could happen. You don't know what we're going to say. Mention something you're struggling with, especially if you know it's coming from somebody who genuinely takes joy in wanting to help people overcome fear. So my challenge to you is, don't sit with that fear today or say you'll deal with it one day. Do something today to actually at least plant the seed of knowing that you have a problem and you want just some step forward to overcome that. Because I don't know what I have time for, but I know this. I don't care how busy I am in life. I will never be too busy that if I see somebody who genuinely needs help, I will reach out to them and figure something out.
That's incredible. What an incredible offer, and what an incredible man you are, just doing what you're doing and living with purpose, passion, and with such conviction.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for doing what you're doing, my man. I love it. I can't wait to see where this takes you. And I can't wait to see the Fear Hunter, which is coming soon. And thank you for joining me, Justin. I appreciate you joining me here.
Thank you.
And thanks. Yeah, my pleasure.
I was just going to say, I can't wait to support you and see you speaking from the stages and empowering people from all the knowledge you learn from people on these podcasts. So I can just see you skyrocketing from here because your heart has just a good, solid foundation, man. It's just an honor being here and seeing what you're doing as well.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. And to everybody out there, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next time. Thanks again. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.